You are listening to the Trizuto podcast, where we talk all things hunting, gear, and the great outdoors. Before we begin, let's start things out right and put God first. Lord Jesus, I thank you for Trizuto, and I ask that you can use this podcast as a way to bring joy to all of our listeners. We lay Trizuto and this podcast at your feet. Amen. All right, here's another episode of the Trizuto podcast. My guest today is Max Trizuto. Max is a California guy who I always want to show love to because we do like to kill stuff out here despite popular belief. And not only Max from California, he's also from the Bay Area. So he is in the heart of, I guess, what we would call anti-hunting. So Max just killed a buck, and I was like, come on, tell the story. So Max, tell me about you. Who are you? Who's Max?
Well, I was born down here in the Bay Area. I come from kind of a mixed background. My dad did a little construction when he was growing up, but mainly pharmaceuticals. So we bounced around. I lived in Boston for a few years and then lived up in Seattle for about 15 years. So I did a little hunting up there with my dad. And then, yeah, when I graduated school, I moved back down here and I got in the plumbers union in San Francisco. So I've been doing plumbing for about 10 years now, and I've done a few guided hunts, but I've been wanting to get out there and do a public land hunt, even though, there's so much negative stuff about it, and the success rate, I think is, 13 or 15% for black-tailed deer. So yeah, I was just really excited to check it out and did a lot of research and yeah, I was able to be successful in the second day. So pretty
So
stoked.
tell me, before we get too much into the deer story, I want to hear the deer story. I want to hear about, because you're, what, 30 years old now? How old are you?
36.
36. Okay, you're 36. So you were hunting when you were a kid. You just killed your first buck at 36. You used to go
Yeah.
hunting with your dad when you were a kid. You guys
Yeah.
never killed a deer.
No, so I don't want to blame my dad 100%, but so he grew up in Burlingame, and his dad was a war veteran. And as a lot of World War II veterans, they went and took on to hunting in the 60s and 70s. And so he took my dad out and a couple of his other siblings. They used to hunt up in Cloverdale, which is about 2 hours north of San Francisco. And they had some family friends with some public land, or I'm sorry, some private land, and they were able to pretty much get a deer every year. And then unfortunately, that family connection was lost. I think they sold the parcel of land. So moving around a few different times, mainly growing up in Seattle, my dad was pretty much just trying to get his ear to the ground and talk around with locals and friends and trying to find some hunting spots up in Washington. And I know there's a lot of spots, but I was probably 10 years old when we moved there and kind of just went out wherever my dad would take me. And there was some Weyerhaeuser, the paper company, had a bunch of clear cut land that was public access, and we could go up there and we hunted a lot, probably 5 or 6, 7 times for deer. And then we did some black bear hunts and, we saw a lot of sign and a lot of other hunters and pretty much it. So then,
So a lot
yeah,
of
I
hiking with a gun.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And which is great. My dad, real outdoorsman, he taught me a lot of stuff and, it was a lot of fun growing up, going outside a lot. So, and he, all during this time, he would go on guided hunts. Being from California, not having a ton of success, he would go to these, I think it was like, I don't know if it was a gun show or trade shows that he would go to at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And he found out about, outfitters and guides, and they had all these different spots. And he ended up going to Newfoundland, Canada, 4 times. And all 4 times he got a bull moose. So I grew up eating moose meat and among other game. He'd go and do an elk hunt in Colorado with a cousin of his. And so, yeah, I got really hooked on game, wild game meat, and always liked the idea of going hunting. But of course, when we would go hunting, it would always just be, public land and not a lot of success. So when
Were you
I
doing any
started,
sort of like bird hunting at all too, or no, or just big
no,
game?
no, I've never done any bird hunting. We've done like a little small game hunting, like small little, rabbit and stuff like that. Nothing, pretty much just opportunistic. But yeah, really no bird hunting. My dad just doesn't, he's not really into bird hunting. I've never owned a shotgun or anything until recently. I'm trying to get tapped into my coworkers trying to take me out on some duck and maybe some upland bird hunts. But yeah, I don't have
Yeah,
any
you guys
experience doing that stuff.
you guys have some really good waterfowl hunting up there. You're kind of right in that flyway, and they've been staying
Yeah,
up there. So I mean, there's some good
yeah,
hunting up there, especially like Sacramento Valley. I mean, we've had that major drought going, and that's just been killing everything, all the rice fields. And And Newsom kind of sucks when it comes to water, so these guys are losing all their fields, and that really stinks. But there's some really good waterfowl up there, man. It's fun to do. It's a great way to get out there and just have some fun and shoot stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend going out and doing some waterfowl hunting or chasing some quail, doing that kind of stuff. It's just
Yeah,
something that's fun to do, and it's not as much of a beating as like going out for a couple of days and not seeing a deer or not getting a deer. Like
yeah,
you don't stress out as much when you miss a duck, because there's always another duck behind it generally, right? It's a really slow
yeah,
day. So it's like, oh, I'll shoot the next one, right? It's more of like you're laughing when you miss and not crying. So it's
yeah,
it's
yeah. I'm definitely
it's
definitely
something.
used to crying.
Yeah, you're kind of doing it backwards from I think for most people. Most people kind of start out with like the small game and the birds, and they go to deer. You're just like your family's just killing moose and elk, and
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's really cool.
yeah,
All right, so
yeah. I've always wanted to do the birds, and I'm gonna get out there. I actually have a couple connections, and we're gonna get out soon. I'm gonna do a turkey hunt later this fall, hopefully, and then yeah, I'll get out and do some duck hunting. And my dream is to do a pheasant hunt. And I just got a connection through my father-in-law. His friend is a member of a club up near Winter, somewhere up in the Chico area, and he's gonna take me out. He's in a club, and he's got a 20 bird card, so I have a Benelli Ethos 12 gauge that I bought last year, and been shooting a lot of clay, a lot of trap shooting. I bought a little electric thrower, and I'm just nailing them. So I think we'll do pretty well if we go out there. So I'm excited for that.
I've shot the clubs a few times for pheasant. Do you know how they do that? You never heard about tumbling birds?
The, yeah, so they're farmed birds, right? They're pen raised, and then they basically
So
release them for you.
well, no, they tumble them and make them all dizzy, or you spin them, right?
Oh,
You kind of
well,
like you
I
spin
didn't know
them,
that.
and they get dizzy, and then you tuck their head under their wing, and you like put them under like if they have like workers, they'll put it out for you. So you basically
Yep.
walk up, and half the time you got to kick the dang bird up and shoot them, but it's a good time. It's just like
What the hell?
no shame in my game. I mean, it's a fun time. We were out there one time doing it, and the
That's
dog
not how
kept
I
picking up
pictured
the.
it.
Well, I mean, maybe a little more wild than that. I don't know. This
Yeah,
is my experiences right down here doing the same kind of thing in San Diego.
sure.
We did it a couple of times where we they let us tumble them ourselves, and we tumbled them too much, so the dog would pick the bird up before it was shot, before it even. So he just picked the
Either
bird
yeah,
up, and we'd
either
be like,
kill him.
ah, no, he wouldn't kill
Yeah.
it. We'd have to like grab it from him, and then throw it in the air, and everybody would shoot it.
Oh my God. Well,
it's
hopefully
it's a
that's not
good
my
time. Who
experience,
cares?
man. But
It's
I'll
it's
take
a
it.
good time. Who
This,
who cares if it is?
yeah,
It's just like I said, bird hunting is fun, dude. I mean, it's like you're going out there.
yeah,
It's just like shooting trap or clays, shooting a club. Like
totally.
they're going to
Yeah,
shoot some of these. It's who cares? It's a good time, man. No shame in my game. And pheasant tastes
whatever.
delicious,
Yeah.
man. It's so good and just
I mean, they're
yeah,
pen
you'll have
raised
a
when it
blast
comes
doing it.
down to it, so it's
Yeah,
not,
they're grain fed and yeah, they let them out. And then a lot of times what we do down here is we'll hunt around the clubs and hunt the ditches and kick them out of ditches because sometimes they fly away, they get missed, then they
Yep.
start around those clubs start working. So we hunt down here like the Imperial Valley in the
Yeah, that's
desert
smart.
is where the pheasant are. We'll hunt around the clubs and we'll kick some dirt up pheasants up out of the
Cool.
ditches. And I
Man, that's
shot my
cool.
first pheasant when I was probably like I don't know 11 or 12 or something, and I wanted to shoot one so bad. And California, the rules you can't shoot them till like I think it's like 7:30 or 8 a.m. I can't remember it's later in the morning. You can't shoot them at
Interesting.
sunrise. It's like 7 or
Hmm.
8 a.m. or something like that. And man, we hunted all day for these. We killed them. We limited on doves. My dad's friend who got me into hunting, he's the only one who took me out. That's why I bird hunted for so long. I bird hunted for like 10 years before I ever picked up a rifle. And he shot a pheasant, honestly, before shooting late, because I remember him telling me, don't tell anybody. I mean, I was 12 years
Yeah.
old. He shot this pheasant. And then so we ended up driving all over the Imperial Valley and we just could not kick up a pheasant for me for the life of us. And we were getting ready to get back on the highway, and I swear to you, this rooster flew over the highway and landed in this dirt field and bedded up in a tumbleweed. And I had to be 12. I walked up there and kicked that thing up, and I put a full thing of 20 gauge in his butt, man, and just hammered him. And it was like I was just doing backflips, and I was so happy I got that rooster. I
Yeah.
came home and I plucked it myself and cooked him up and had it cooked for my family. It was my first like that's not a big game. That was like my first like big animal, right, to eat,
Yeah.
right? Versus shooting doves, and quail. Like shooting a big pheasant, it's cool, and they got the big old long
Yeah.
tails on them. So you
Yeah.
cut
They're
their
beautiful.
tails off, and I hang their tails up in my garage. I have like up on the wall up there until
Yeah.
the dog gets them or something happens. But they're you're gonna have a blast, man. That's cool. You're gonna really enjoy
Yeah, I'm
that.
excited. I'm excited. This guy's got two German short hairs too, so it's gonna be cool, man.
Yeah, good dogs are the best. That's another thing
Yeah,
too. There's people who have dogs and people who have good dogs, right? So if he's hunting all the time, he's got good dogs. That's awesome. And then you go out with
yeah,
somebody who doesn't have a good dog, and the whole time they're just screaming, "Buck, come here, Buck,
yeah,
Buck, get back, Buck, come, Buck, come, Buck, come." I've been on some hunts where you're just like, "Oh man."
yeah. Why
That's
do we
why
bring this guy?
why we bring this dog. It's just charging, and but you go with there's nothing better than hunting over a good dog, man. A good dog is just something. There's something beautiful about it,
Yeah,
especially with those German short hairs, man. If they're pointing the birds and you're able to get up on them and shoo them up, it's
yeah,
just flush them. It's
yeah.
just
It's exciting.
there's something majestic about that, man. It's really cool. So you're gonna have a blast the whole situation, and yeah, I you're gonna love it. I'm stoked you're getting to do that.
Yeah,
So
me too, man.
you've been hunting. It seems like you've been hunting your whole life.
Yep.
Before we get into your buck you just shot, you've killed elk and bison and stuff, or what else have you
Yeah.
killed
So,
before then? So
so
tell me
here's
about that.
here's the
Tell me
deal.
about tell me about guided hunting. What is that like for you?
So I grew up, like I said, I grew up. My dad always going on these guided hunts, so we always had a freezer full of just killer meat and these killer stories, And one of these Newfoundland guys that he used to get the moose from, and they had like these jet helicopters, and like it was like all, they had this cool cabin, and there's a chef and all this stuff. It's like, man, this like sounds awesome. And I always ask my dad, like, maybe I could come on one of these, and yeah, maybe. And so yeah, when I started doing this plumbing thing and started making some money and finally out on my own, and I said, "Hey, pops, let's get out on one of these guided hunts. Let's go do a moose hunt." And he goes, "Fuck, all right, let's do it." So we looked into it, and my dad's not super savvy with the internet, so and I didn't really know who to look through, and just start googling guide services and outfitters. And so he found I think the daughter of the original guide that he used to go with, who was retired at that time. So this lady has an outfitter service up in Newfoundland, and we signed up. I think it was about 4,000 a piece, plus 1,000 in flights, and then flying on the airplane with rifles, and it was a big ordeal. And you got on a series of smaller and smaller planes until eventually we're on this de Havilland Beaver float plane. We land into this little pond. There's no roads, no cars, no ATVs, this small little cabin. And yeah, we get there, and it's supposed to be a 2-on-1, 2-by-1 guided hunt. So there's four of us. We're supposed to have two guides, and turns out there's only one guide. And it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. And they said, "Oh no, we're going to bring more guides in," and they ended up never having another guide come in. So the first day, there's four of us plus the guide traipsing through the forest, making all sorts of noise. Probably scared all the moose away. And the second day, and from there on out, we said, "Hey man, let's split up, because this is ridiculous." So we ended up hunting real hard every day for 6 days, from right before sun up to right after sundown. And we saw a couple cow the first day and some calves, and no bulls. And then we had, I guess it was at the time, I think it was 2017. There was a big hurricane that just came through down south, and came all the way up the east coast, up into Canada. And it wasn't really a hurricane at the time, but it was a big rainstorm. And I think all the moose just kind of hunkered down, and the rest of the trip we didn't see anything. So it was really brutal, spending all this money and having almost a guaranteed hunt, and then ending up not getting one. So we were kind of pissed about that, but we do also do realize it's hunting. So after that, my dad said, "Hey, how about to make it up to you, we go on another hunt, but it's kind of more of a high fence kind of hunt." So he looked into this bison thing. It was in North Dakota. It's called the Bison Ranch. Really great spot if you ever want to check it out. I think it was about $3,500. We went out there and fully outfitted, a nice cabin and everything. My pops and I having a good time. And it was just a 1 day hunt. We went out in this dude's expedition, and he's got like a couple thousand acres, and drove around for a while, and we found this huge herd of bison. And I guess he buys them when they're small calves, and then raises them up, but they're not fed with anything there. They eat traditional local native grass, buffalo grass and everything. And yeah, so that was my first real kill. Um,
What'd you shoot
was
that
a
with?
bison. I used my dad's 300 Win Mag as a Browning A bolt, and yeah, this guy, Kelsey's the guy that runs the spot. He is really adamant about getting a really instant, clean kill because of the meat quality. And, they're probably like his kids, right? So he wanted basically right behind the skull, neck shot, so that it's just real instant. And got me into about 80 yards, and I shot off the hood of this guy's truck, basically. And yeah, it was just an instant kill. And, the scope just goes everywhere. And I don't know what I'm trying to relocate him in the scope, instead of just looking. And I hear him go, great shot, and I look and finally just looking, he's upside down with his legs twitching. And it was a huge relief, and we spent the whole next day processing it in the guy's place. He's got this beautiful processing center and ground it all. And it was a really cool experience. And not to mention just hanging with my pops, the whole time.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so that was it.
So what did you guys, did you make a rug out of it or anything?
Yeah, I have a cool rug. And God, man, I forget how much meat there was over 300 pounds of boneless meat. And it was just incredible stuff. Really, really good meat. It's not like the bison you get at the store, which is farm raised and just like a cow, basically. They got hormones and
Yeah.
they feed them, whatever grain and stuff.
Yeah.
These are, a little more wild, I guess. But I didn't
Yeah,
really
you'll
love the idea that it wasn't a fair chase hunt. And it was great. It was a great first time for something big game, and the meat was great, and the rug's cool, and I got the Euro mount skull in my fireplace, so it's really cool. But I told him, I said, "Hey, man, I want to do a fair chase. I want to do a real hunt." So the next hunt we did was cow elk, guided cow elk in eastern Oregon, and that was a successful hunt. We both got cows, and that was a really cool experience.
That's awesome. So for one, like I tell people all the time when they're getting into like big game hunting, like go on a guided hunt. Go do one of those
Yeah,
high fence hunts just to get like you need to start getting some like kills under your belt, right?
yeah,
And like understand
absolutely.
you're going to be with a guide and you're going to learn how to, I mean, even though it's a freaking bison, you're going to learn how to gut an animal or process an animal, how to pull a
Yeah,
front shoulder off, how to pull a hind quarter off, learn where the ball joint is in that hind quarter. You know what I mean? Like there's stuff you're going to
yeah,
learn doing that.
yeah,
And I tell people all the time in California just to go on a pig hunt. So
totally.
we have pigs down here, and I would say go on a guided pig hunt and just get out there and get the experience. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then there's no shame in it, man. Honestly, I kind of want to get the
No.
number of the guy you did the bison with because
Oh, happy
my
to share.
father,
He's a great
my
experience.
yeah, I want to get my father-in-law. He's we're going cow elk hunting next week, public land, DIY, doing the whole wall
Nice.
tent, the whole nine with the boys. It's gonna be awesome. But man, I've been he wants to kill a bison, and honestly, his chances of ever drawing that tag is pretty much impossible.
Yeah,
It's a real hard
that's
tag
a
to
tough
draw.
one
But if we
too.
could go to that hunt with him, I think it'd be great to go out there and do it. He's 73 years old. Go out there and
Yeah.
shoot a bison and
Oh,
have
this
that
is
meat and
perfect
just
for
have the
that.
experience and sit.
Yeah.
You're still sitting you're still in the cabin. You're still hanging out with like
Yeah.
minded people, and it's a good
Yeah.
time. That's a great experience, and it'd be fun to get him out there to do
Yeah.
that. So
Spend it,
after
man.
yeah, I'm planning on running him into the ground on this elk hunt. So we're gonna have a good time. I was
Yeah.
just on Xing spots. And I'm like, okay, this spot we can drive all the way up to the top and camp. That way we don't have to hike up 1,000 foot. So, but I'm still going to be. It's going to be anytime you're doing public land, even if it's cows. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work for him, and it's going to be fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, those bison hunts, that's a good time, man. I'm stoked you got to do that. So you guys killed
Yeah.
some
Highly
cows on.
recommend it.
Yeah, I'll
Yep.
have to get the number
Yeah.
from you for that guy. So
Yeah.
you
I think
guys
that cow
killed
elk
some
was like
cow elk.
25. Yeah, the cow elk was, I think it was about 2,500 bucks. We're actually going back at the end of October for a bull elk for the second rifle season, which I guess is a post rut hunt. So I'm really excited for that. And we didn't want to spend all the money after, especially after our Newfoundland experience, until we kind of saw the operation. So we figured, well, let's do cows first. We'll see what kind of guys these are, what kind of land it is. It's 100,000 acres of private land, and man, it's like all these guys work so hard to help you, and it's just a great place. Not to mention, there's just hundreds of elk running around, and they just know where they're at. They know their habits. They've been doing it for 30 years, and they also do mule deer, like apparently like trophy, 200 plus inch mule deer hunts, which are like crazy money, like $20,000 hunts. But
Guided
yeah,
hunts have gone through the roof lately. So I mean, every hunt.
yeah,
When you were saying, oh, 4 or 5 grand for Newfoundland, I'm like, oh, that's cheap.
yeah.
I
It's
mean,
probably
gosh, things
six
have just
now. It
gone.
goes up $1,000 every couple of years.
Even six is cheap compared to what things are right
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put 5 kids through school right now, so I don't do many of these two guided hunts too much. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
they're a
as
good
long as you're
time, and it's
successful
great to
with
go.
some public hunts, there's no reason to do it, you know?
Yeah, we kill stuff sometimes, but a lot of times you don't. But it's
Yeah.
great to go out and do it
Good
and get that
idea.
experience. There's no shame in going out there and learning, especially going out and chasing elk. Like there's such a learning curve to figuring those things out, and you get to be
Oh,
with the
yeah.
guy who's killing 20 or 30 of them a season, right? You know, an operation like that where you're going to be learning a lot, a lot
Oh,
more
yeah.
than you are by
Yeah.
going out on your own. And you're living in San Francisco, so I guess you have some elk kind of near you, but you're not going to draw that
Yeah.
tag maybe once in your life.
Nah,
So you get to go out and do this guided
nah.
hunt, and you're going to get that experience. You're going to learn about it, and then next year you can go get a DIY public land Colorado over the counter tag, and then go
Yeah.
get your
Yeah,
butt kicked and
that's what I
chase
want to
public
do
land
eventually
bulls.
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Learn it. All right, so tell me. So now you are a public land DIY hunter because you just killed your first buck and you shot it with
Yep.
a rifle or bow? Rifle,
Rifle. Yeah.
rifle.
This
Shot with the
rifle
rifle.
right behind me. Yeah.
You're hunting. Yeah, you're hunting A zone. Yeah,
Yes.
A zone. So California has like zones. So like I'm in D16 down here in San Diego. There's like D17, X9A, but there's one zone called the A zone, and it's like basically from LA or Ventura all the way up to like
Yeah.
NorCal, this big
Yep.
giant zone, and it's a super long season. Not a high success rate. A lot of the successes are on private land. There are some good bucks on private land, some of
Yeah.
these big ranches, but it's not a high success rate hunt. But you found a way. So tell me about that. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew from the beginning that the public land hunt just in general is going to be tough, especially A zone. A zone. I mean, most of the hunters that I talk to around here, they're saying, I don't even buy A zone tags. It's too hot. California mismanages, or the season's too early, blah, blah, blah. And definitely a lot of it is very true, but people say it's impossible, and it's obviously not, because most of my experience is either unsuccessful public land hunts, where we didn't even get close, and guided, which obviously I can't take any credit for finding the animals, because we're just following the guides. So all this was just by myself. I did a little research online, a lot of Onyx, a lot of satellite images, and it was really cool to just kind of look at some land and just say, well, I feel like they would probably hang out in this area, and then actually have that be true, because it's kind of just, you're just guessing, really. So, yeah, so I went and bought my tag, and the guy at Sportsman's Warehouse is going, A zone. You're buying an A zone tag? He goes, oh, private land? And I said, no, public. And he starts laughing. Oh, well, good luck, It's basically like, there's no way. And so, did some research, found a couple different spots. I wanted to do a backpack hunt. So a buddy of mine who's also kind of new to the hunting public land scene, he's actually new to hunting altogether. We decided to do it together, and I heard from somebody to check out this place called the Cache Creek Wilderness Area, and it was like 2 miles off the road. You can start looking for camping spots. There's a nice trail there. So we went in the day before opening day, and we camped, and then the morning of opening day we got in position where we thought was going to be a nice glassing knob, and of course there's 10 other headlamps there, and it's like ridiculous. And I think we had a good spot, which is great, because some guy must have just swooped in right underneath us, because we heard the bushes rustling right underneath us where we were looking at the bottom of the canyon. And we're like, man, what's that down there? And all of a sudden we heard a shot go off, and the guy's down there dressing the deer that we might have been able to take a look at. So it was annoying, and it was really hot. So we just said, man, it's like 9 a.m. and it's already 90 degrees. Like, maybe we should just get out of here. So we packed up, hiked out of there. I've never had a 50-pound pack on my back, but it was pretty brutal. Um, Plus the weather, plus everything. There was some water there, but we would have had to hike another 3 miles away from the car to get to the water and then filter it. And people are saying, "Oh, there's mercury in this creek, and maybe you don't want to drink it." And I'm not really too familiar with for filters and stuff like that, so I'm saying, well, maybe we should just bounce. So we took off, and that was it. We had about 4 or 5 hours of hunting, and then a couple weeks later, my buddy, the same
So
buddy,
real
said, "Well, I
quick
want."
on the water thing,
Yeah.
um, something we do down here. is we pack in gallons of water. So we'll pack
Yeah.
in. I don't know how legal it has. I mean, I don't think probably not legal because it's whatever littering, I guess. But I'll pack in like 6 gallons of water and I'll stash it in like some rocks, and then I'll pin it so it's there. I
Oh,
don't.
yeah, like before.
So
Yeah,
that
I'm sure it's,
yeah, before season, I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, people do it all the time. So you'll pack it in and you'll
yeah,
store it like under some bushes or up in a
yeah.
under in a rock pile. Then you have water. You have water in there if you don't want to filter.
That's
Or
really
a lot of
smart.
times
Yeah, that's really smart.
the lot of time the reason we're doing that is because we're hiking up, so the water's down below. So
Yeah,
like you just it's so you're hiking up. It sucks. I mean, you carry in if you carry in 3 gallons, that's 24 pounds right there, right, or something like that, 26 pounds.
yeah. It's
Um,
8.3 pounds
so
per gallon.
yeah, so you just carry that in and do that a couple times scouting and just pin it and leave it there, then you have that water there. And it's bailed me out a couple times where I've been
Yeah,
out hunting
it's
and
a
like we
good
ran out
idea.
of water. It's like, oh, I got a stash over here. We'll go grab a couple
Yeah,
gallons and you got water.
we
And then
might
on
have
the
stayed
filter stuff,
if we had more
yeah.
water.
Yeah, on the filter stuff, I have like an MSR pump that I like. I always have in my pack, I always have the tablets no matter what, because sometimes I'm just lazy and I just want to throw some water in there and throw some tablets in.
Yeah,
No matter what. And it's just like just in case something breaks. But I've really been liking the gravity filters. So they have like
yeah,
it's like the Kettadin one, but I have one. It's an MSR, and I use the Drumlight bags. So I have like 6 liter Drumlight bags, two of those, and one 4 liter from MSR. And you put 10 liters of water in this thing, just hang it up, and it filters the water for you. And then you have 6 liters of water right there, right? So you're probably gonna
yeah,
drink. Typically, I'm gonna go through at least 3 liters of water in a day, especially when it's that hot. So
yeah,
it's nice, and you just set the thing up, especially if you're near water or camping near water. You just set it up and lay back, and 15
yeah,
minutes later, your thing's full, or 10 minutes later, it's full. So check out the Drama Light bags
yeah,
for that. And they even make like I'm using like a cheaper filter. They even make like a more expensive filter. It's like $200. It does more, takes more stuff out of it. But I don't know. I've never gotten sick using the one that I got, and it was like I think the whole system's like 180. But if you buy the special filter, it might be another $100 or something to get the
yeah.
custom.
Well, it's worth it to have peace of mind too, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've drinking some pretty nasty water. I mean, I've drinking out of drinkers and some pretty
Yeah.
gross stuff. But I don't know. Everyone has their limits, and I don't know.
Well,
My
when you're
standards are pretty
thirsty,
low.
you know? Yeah,
My
when you're
standards are
thirsty.
pretty low. I mean, I filter it, but it's like, oh, it is really hard. Like especially in your elk hunting, and you got things pissing in wallows and water, and you're trying
Yeah.
to that's pretty gross.
Uh,
So it's definitely
yeah.
there's some downsides to filtering water sometimes, but yeah, I find those MSR gravity filters are really awesome. All right, so you pack out.
Yeah, we bailed out, and then so when we first looked at spots, there was two different spots that I found online, and the original spot was actually the spot that I ended up getting my buck. So we had two different options, and the first option was in the Mendocino National Forest. And after talking around with some people, I found out that it's like, dude, you're gonna get in there. There's gonna be trucks all over the place, ATVs, dirt bikes. Not a good backpacking place because you're gonna backpack in 3, 4 miles and then all of a sudden some guy on a dirt bike's just going to pull up past you, you know? So that's when I heard about the Cache Creek Wilderness area, which is where we had our bad experience, you know? So after that, my buddy said, well, I'm going to go back to that other area and see how that is, you know? And we won't have to backpack. I'll just park my truck and maybe hunt a couple miles out of there and, you know, so be it. So he ended up getting his first buck, his first year of hunting ever. I think he's pretty comfortable with guns, but he's never hunted before and self-taught, all YouTube and online stuff. Give him a lot of credit, and he got a nice little 3x2. Looks like a 2x2 just like mine, but one of the antlers just has a tiny little extra tine on it. So yeah, so he got one. So I go, man, I better check that area out because that's kind of the first spot that I was looking at, and everyone told me not to go there, but maybe it is a good area. He said he saw all sorts of does, and he said he saw a couple different bucks way out there, and so I said I'll just go. And yeah, I ended up going by myself. Just kind of looked at satellite imagery, and I set a pin on Onyx. I did the offline maps thing, and I set a pin basically on this forest road right where it becomes national forest land because before that there's little spots that are kind of private and I didn't want to mess with that, especially if I don't have any service. I didn't want to be looking around at maps, so I made my mark and drove up there. And it's kind of embarrassing, but I sold my F-150 last year, so I've been commuting my wife's BMW 3 Series, and I brought that. I ended up putting a buck in the trunk of that. So
That's awesome.
it's pretty funny. So I'm driving up this gravel road. It's about 7 miles up and going real slow. And man, before the sun was even up, I already saw a doe jump across the road right in front of me. And I'm like, okay, cool. This looks like a good land. And there's a big sign saying that there was a burn here last year. And I'm like, okay, this is promising. And I get up to the top of the ridge line, and the sun's just barely starting to come up. So I park my car and start walking down the road. Checked a couple different spots out, and I said, no, let me check out this little ridge right here. Sat down, just sat on this ridge, basically in the shade with the sun behind me, and just waiting for the sun to kind of reach the other hillside in front of me. And I was there for about 2 hours. A lot of glassing. Love the tripod, the AD, by the way, LP panhead. That's killer
That's
tripod,
awesome.
super light. The last time when I forgot to mention when I did that backpacking hunt, I had never had a tripod glassing before. And after watching Meat Eater and all this stuff, like man, I think a tripod would be cool to have. So I brought my like photography Manfrotto tripod, which is probably 7 pounds, and I didn't see any deer, but I love glassing with it because you could just set it still and just stare at a spot, and really analyze every little area. So that's when I decided to get a nice tripod. And yeah, I spent 2 3 hours just glassing up a ton of deer. I didn't see any bucks, but I saw at least another four does and two fawns, and they're all just feeding, and it was just great. I'm saying, man, this area is really good. And then it was around 9 a.m. The sun finally got on me. I couldn't get a decent spot that was going to have shade all day. So the sun got on me. It started getting real hot. I think it was 95 that day, and it was probably already 80. So I said, well, let me just pack up and go and find another spot. Maybe start heading back towards the car because at this point I was probably 2.5 miles from the car. And yeah, so I said I'll start heading back towards the car and look for a nice shady spot, and maybe I'll do some glassing and look for some bedded bucks because I figured right now they're probably not moving around anymore. It's 9, it's almost 10 a.m. Probably going to start bedding down. It's pretty hot, so I found nice little top of a ridge line with a big tree, and I sat underneath it. I had this little folding chair that I set up, kind of like the one that I saw you using. It's the old little REI chair that my wife gave me. And yeah, so I'm glassing, and I don't see anything. And I say, well, I'll just drink some water and chill because I'm kind of hot, and start eating my peanut butter jelly sandwich. And I'm looking straight down at this hill that has all the shaded trees on it, and I'm not seeing anything. And I'm eating, and then all of a sudden I hear about 15 feet directly to my right, which is an area that I was not even thinking about because the wind was going right in that direction. And not to mention, there was no shade there. So I figured, well, I'll just look this way. And all of a sudden, I heard a stick break, and I turned my head, and literally 15 feet from me, there's this little buck just staring at me. And we had a little stare down for probably at least a minute, and it felt like an hour. And I figured, dude, I can't move. If I move, this buck's gonna spook. He's gonna run. I can't reach for my rifle. I got my freaking peanut butter jelly sandwich with one hand, and I'm staring at my phone in my other hand. And I'm like, man, you screwed up. There's no way you're gonna get this buck. And then all of a sudden, he let out this crazy like barking sound. Jumped up, he ran, just started running. So I dropped everything, grabbed my rifle, and as soon as I put it to my shoulder, I chambered around because I never hunt with the chambered round. Chambered around and put it to my shoulder. And as soon as the scope hits my eye, it's already right on this guy's shoulder, and he's literally stopped and turned broadside. And I just squeezed one off right behind the shoulder. I have a 300 Win Mag. It's a big game rifle. I don't have a deer rifle. Way too much rifle for this small little deer. I just destroyed his ribs. But yeah, he went right down, and I went over there and found him, and he's just sitting there. And yeah, that's kind of when you realize like you're totally alone, and you better gut this animal out and do it all correctly. And I've never done it before by myself. I've always helped my dad or helped guides, and you think you kind of know what you're doing until you're totally by yourself. And then, yeah, so I figured it out, and gutted it out, tried to get it in the shade as soon as possible. And I had to drag it about 250 yards up to the road. And it was through this real thick sagebrush and buckbrush. And man, it was brutal. It was really hot. I couldn't find any shade. And I was just dragging it around 50 feet at a time, and I had to stop and take a break and drink water and feel like I'm going to get heat stroke, and I'm starting to get worried, like I don't know if I can get this guy up to the road. And I've been seeing trucks drive by all day. Of course, I was thinking take the easy way out and maybe if I see a truck, maybe have somebody help me. I didn't see any trucks and ended up just dragging him up and finally got him up there. And man, I swear I was pretty close to getting some heat stroke. It was just so hot. And I'm just not used to hunting in hot weather. All these hunts that I've been on before in Washington State, it's usually cold, wet. So it's 100 degrees and you're wearing all this gear, and I got really good merino gear, but it's still, it's hot. And I finally drag them up to the road, and then I got to go get my car. That's like at least a mile down the road. And I start walking, and it's starting to get real hot, and I had to take a couple breaks, sit in the shade, drink water. And then, yeah, I finally got to my car, drove it back, and had to lug them up into the trunk, which was pretty tough. And then,
Of your wife's car.
yeah, I mean, it's mine now,
He's
but
still
I
he's
don't
still
consider it
he's
mine.
still hide on. He still has the
Yeah,
cape on, yeah?
yeah. So
Okay.
all I did was gut him, and I wanted to drag him, so I didn't want to take the hide off or anything, even though I know that it would have helped drop temperatures quick on the meat. I figured if I had him in the trunk of the car, I had a big cooler with a couple really big ice bags in the trunk. So I figured if I had him in the trunk with the ice bags in the cavity, in less than an hour, it'd be okay. As long as I got the guts out really quick, that was my main concern because that drops the temperature quick. And I haven't received the meat yet, but I don't think that there's going to be any spoilage. But it
Be
was a
fine.
concern. Yeah, no, it was a concern,
Yeah.
especially being by myself and worrying about heat stroke and all this and that. Man, it was pretty intense. A lot of work,
Yeah,
hard work.
you gotta look into going doing the gutless method. And I mean I
Yeah,
can go gutless and get a deer apart in like 20 minutes now. It's pretty quick, man. You just right behind the skull cap, and I just run that knife right down all the way down the back, peel it, start peeling that thing back, and get do one side of the deer, pull the back straps, front quarter, rear quarter, any of the flank meat I want to get, the neck meat, and then flip that sucker over, neck side, and then just throw it in game bags and bring them out. I mean, on the big hunts, when we're out there real deep, we'll just go boneless, so we'll pull it off the bone too. But when it's that hot, I'm taking out bone in, just getting it out of there as soon as I can, getting it
yeah,
back
just
to
quick.
ice,
Yeah,
like you're saying, yeah. But
yeah,
even then, I mean, there's even dragging a deer it sucks, but packing a deer
yeah,
sucks too. I mean, when it's 100 degrees, I
yeah.
mean, no matter what you do,
Everything
you're dragging
sucks.
it or you're everything sucks. It's part of the experience, right? Is go out there and do it. And I don't think that 300 Win Mag. Don't let anybody tell you it's too much rifle for a deer. That's a beautiful deer cartridge, man. I mean,
You
you can't
think?
kill them too dead. You can't kill them too
Yeah,
dead.
I
And
lost.
like I
I
mean,
lost a lot of meat on the ribs. I lost a lot of
that
meat on
wasn't
the
that
ribs.
wasn't
But
that
is
wasn't because it
there?
was 300 Win.
There's not
It
much there
wasn't because it was
anyway, though.
300 Win Mag. It wasn't because it was 300 Win Mag though. I mean, my kids shoot 308. It's the same bullet. You know what I mean? It's not like
Yeah,
you're gonna get. It's not.
yeah.
What are you shooting a copper like TTSX out of it?
TTSX 180, and I would have
180.
liked to have some
Yeah,
150s or 160s, but I just none of them group well on my rifle. And the only thing that groups well is the
yeah,
180s, and I shot a quarter
yeah.
inch
That's
group
and
with
that's
factory ammo. So
yeah. That's it. That is. I mean, it wasn't the bullet. It's just where you hit them. I mean, you shoot them
yeah,
with a 260 or a 65 Creedmoor in the wrong spot. Same thing's gonna happen. You
yeah,
can't kill them too dead. Like my kids shoot a
that's kind of what I
168
thought.
TTSX. My kids shoot the 168 TTSX, which is like at a 308, so it's like one step down from that bullet, and it's not going as fast, but it just kills them. It's a
It's not
great
much
cartridge.
difference. Yeah,
Don't talk yourself into going to buy a Creedmoor or you need a small rifle. You have a rifle that works, use it and
yeah,
kill stuff, and then go on more hunts. I tell people all the time, like, just take what you got and go on more hunts. Don't let people dupe you into thinking you need to change it up. Or 300 Win Mag
yeah.
is an
I don't want to
incredible
spend the
deer
money
rifle.
anyway. I spent so much
300
money
Win
just
Mag,
building this
yeah.
rifle up.
Yeah, buy freaking buy some better binoculars. You know what I mean? Like 300
Yeah,
Win Mag is a great rifle, man. It really is. So that's
it
awesome,
is.
dude. So
Yeah.
you got your first public land deer, 36 years old,
Yep.
A zone, which is awesome, and that's rad, dude. Thanks for sharing the story. I'm stoked. I'm
Absolutely, man.
not biased on this. I mean, like I had a guy on yesterday, and he shot a 200-inch buck, and I have you on, and you shot your first buck. Like I just like hunting stories. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's what I want to hear. My kid was on talking about his spike that he shot. So it's just hunting stories, man. We're all out there doing it, and any deer you get on public land, especially in California, man, that's a trophy. And you put the effort in, you put the work in, you figured it
Yeah.
out, you got where they were, and you got it done. You put it in your wife's freaking Beamer, which is a sick story in itself. That's awesome.
Yeah, I
That's
had a bunch
awesome.
of
Yeah,
blood
pull.
dripping down the trunk,
You should
man.
have
I had
went.
to wash
You
it
should have
off
went.
before I hit the
Yeah,
road.
you should have went to the. You should have went to like the car washer, washing the blood out of your trunk, and just look at people. And,
Yeah, exactly.
oh, there's blood in here. Driving down the road, people were probably freaking out.
Yeah.
Um, cool, dude. Where do you want? Do you want anybody to find you? Are you public on Instagram or anything, or no?
Yeah, I'm on. Actually, I'm not public. I'm private. But yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't
What's
know. I
you?
don't have a reason for being private, but this is how it is.
Uh, oh, do you want
There's
people
no
to follow
reason to
you or
follow me
no?
though. I don't have any
There's
good
no reason to follow.
material on there. I actually don't. I don't put any hunting kill stuff on my social media because I'm in the Bay Area, dude, and most of my friends and family, and I don't want to make anybody angry, and you know how people are. You're not going to change anybody's mind. So I got my
Yeah, my
buddies that I share
perspective.
stuff with, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I get it, man. My perspective with all that stuff is like they're gonna shove their stuff down your throats, and I'm not gonna be ashamed of what I do. Going out hunting, and I'm not gonna be like my sister-in-law. I love her to death. She's gonna come on the podcast, but she's a bleeding liberal, environmental scientist, vegetarian. I'm not sending her like grip and grins, right? Like, hey, check out what I
yeah,
killed. I'm not gonna do that. I'm
sure,
not gonna force it down her throat. But I'm gonna share my stuff and talk about it because it's what I do, and there's no shame in going out there and putting meat on the table
yeah,
for your family. You have kids? You have kids too, or no?
I do. Yeah, a year and a half year old, my first.
So you're feeding your kid the deer you shot, and that's beautiful, man. There's no shame in that. Good for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I wanted to
Good for
grow
you.
up eating game meat and being comfortable with it. It's so funny how people are. Vegetarians, vegans. You can't really. There's not much you could say to them because most of the people that talk crap about hunting, they're eating meat, they're buying meat at the store,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
somehow they don't see that it's any. They see that it's way worse that you're killing the animal yourself, and whatever. I just like to just do my own thing, and I'm so sick of having arguments with the brick wall. You know what I mean? So I just do my own thing, and I have my own community and friends that support what I do, and that's all I need. I don't do it for anyone else besides me. But the whole public land thing, and I just wanted to do it just because I've done all these guided hunts and stuff, and you know I hear a lot of stuff from other guys. They roll their eyes when they hear about guided hunts and stuff. They feel that it takes all the skill out of it. Anyone can go and do it. And I kind of was starting to think like, man, maybe I should just see if I could do this by myself, and prove it to myself. Like, I am a good hunter. So, and that's kind of why I did it. And it feels really good. I'm really proud. It's a tiny little 2x2. I just boiled it yesterday and hung it. My wife let me hang it in the laundry room. So pretty excited about that. I'm pretty proud of that little guy, man.
that's awesome. So you know that? Do you know that the rule for hanging mounts with your wife?
No.
So you always start with like, I'm gonna put this over our bed.
Oh,
And then
okay.
you always
Work
start
your
like
way
you always
down.
start extreme. Yeah, like if you start with like, oh,
Nice.
what do you think about like? No, like start with over the bed, and then you'll get the fireplace. You know what I mean? Like you always start with like something extreme, like, oh
Yeah.
man, I'm putting
No,
this in the
that's
kitchen.
smart.
This will look great. This will look great in the kitchen. And then
That's
you
really
start
smart.
compromising from there. It's like any kind of negotiation. You always start on like extreme end of it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and no shame of freaking going on guided hunts. Dude, that's awesome you're doing that, man. Screw that. Those guys are buying their meat down at freaking Albertsons in the grocery store, and you're out there hunting and getting animals and putting it in the freezer for your
Yeah.
family. Don't let anybody put you to shame for that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
It's
now
those
now
guys
that
need to make a living
I've done
anyways.
this, it was basically just for myself, my own reasons. Now that I've done this, I want to go on some more guided hunts, and I have no guilt about it. I wanted to prove it to myself that it wasn't because of anyone else that I was getting these animals. This one I did it all by myself in a spot that nobody can get deer, quote unquote, and real low success rate and blah blah blah. But I went and got it done. I mean, the guy came out of the bushes. I don't know if the peanut butter sandwich brought him in or what, but whatever it was, it was due to me and nobody else. So
Yeah. Well, good for you, dude. Thanks for coming on, and
yeah,
I will talk to you soon.
sounds good, man. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening to the Tricer Podcast. Do us a favor and like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook at Tricer USA, and go and check out all of our innovative gear at www.tricerusa.com. Until next time, shoot straight, have fun, and always put God first.